Hello, welcome to June 6th, 2022. I'm Kurt, and this is my daily Good Life meditation video, an exercise that I perform each and every day shortly after waking up to remind myself of my life objectives and principles and to see how I did applying those to the challenges and opportunities yesterday and to ready myself for the coming day. First, last night and yesterday. Didn't sleep too well last night. I was up, solidly up, at 3 a.m. With nothing really to worry about, but really up. Sometimes you're just so much more awake than usual and aware of my dilemma. It's like my brain is trained to worry from 3 to 5. And for some reason it wakes up really fussy sometimes, or eager to fuss. And if I've got something to think about, then I do. And if I don't, then I find something else. I wound up imagining myself as a crew member on a small airplane, maybe like a 50-seat or 25-seat commuter jet or something. I don't know if they make them 50 seats, but it was a small plane, and all of the people in the back were fellow co-workers for that airline, and there was one other cabin attendant and myself, and he and I sat up in the front area with the divider between us and the people below. So I guess it was big enough to have a divider. And we didn't want to go back. It was a short flight, and we didn't want to go back and serve the passengers because they were not paying passengers. They were airline staff like ourselves, and we had this strange idea that we didn't need to do our job for some reason, which is very unlike me. Don't know where I got that. Maybe that's a result of my perpetual worry. I perpetually worry. I worry after my work. I constantly worry that I'm not doing a good enough job. I've never quite seen it in that regard, in that light. So I couldn't find anything to worry about at my proper job, so I made something up. And this time it was an ethical dilemma. Not a dilemma of not serving my passengers well, but whether I was doing the wrong thing in not serving the passengers because they were not passengers, in fact, but simply a crew full of staff. It'd be like, we're all in the same company or something. I don't know. Anyway, I worried about that until the alarm went off. But that was only like for the last 15 minutes or so. It's funny how my brain fussed and couldn't find anything to worry about, and then finally did. And my brain was quite upset that it couldn't find anything to worry about, and demanded I would be fully awake. And as a result, I'm not rested at all. Fortunately, I don't want to jinx myself. Today shouldn't be too difficult. Although I do have some challenging things I need to take on today. I do have some tough meetings today. But they're the types of meetings that hopefully will make forward progress in. But I think I'm ready for the day. But I am so tired of this. I'm ready to not do this anymore. I'm ready and eager to retire. I keep looking in earnest for places in Japan, houses that we could buy in earnest to that end. Tired. Otherwise, yesterday was a fine day. Yumiko and I had a good day. It was a full day of shopping, driving, eating out. It was a very full day. Getting ready for our upcoming trip to Vegas next weekend. Had two incidents yesterday that are worth noting. Opportunities. One was an observation. The other was an opportunity. The first was an observation that we went to the South Coast Plaza, and Yumiko needed to pick something up at one of the stores. I elected to wait outside. There was a bench across. There was like an aisle island area in the middle of the shopping mall. Like a little. Well, actually, it was all of escalators coming down, and then there was a bank. And then there was one chair, one bench. I stood at the outside of the store, next to the door, looking out, and immediately across from me was the bench, and there was an old man, probably in his 70s, sitting there, staring straight at where I was, but a little to the right at the wall. And the first thought was, you don't see too many people his age in places like this. You know, I guess I could call, he looked late 70s. I guess I can call late 70s very old. They tend not to come to these places. And what struck me was how he was not paying attention to anything going on around. I was in a very good frame of mind at that point. I was feeling, all afternoon I was feeling very good. And I was observing all the people coming down the escalator and milling all around, the families, the couples, the young teenagers, in their gaggly groups, milling about, shopping bags. And I was just thinking about all the industry and the activity and the distraction of it all. And I did distinctly think, I don't want to be a part of this. I'm done with all this distraction, And then I looked at the old man staring at the wall, unfazed by any of that. And I didn't know what he was, of course I don't have any idea what he was thinking about. I tried to pierce into his head and figure out what he might be thinking about. And I wondered if he was tired, maybe he's got, or maybe if he's in pain, maybe, old age can do that to you. Or maybe he just, like me, he was, but 20 years further ahead in, just not wanting to be a part of this anymore. Not wanting to live, but not wanting to be in a shopping mall. Not wanting to be, getting a Starbucks and look window shopping and people watching and all that stuff. Just doesn't want it. And while I sat there, his family showed up, and it was a big family. There was his wife, his age. There were at least 3 adults that could have been their children. 2 of them were probably parents. Maybe 2 of them were, I don't know. 3 adults, and then a gaggle of kids, maybe 4 children. So a big group, and they all milled around the bench. They were looking at phones together, looking through bags at their shopping, and they were there for a long time, because Yumiko was shopping for a long time. And I noticed that the man didn't engage with them. He just continued staring at the wall. And I was like, yeah, that's how I'll probably be when I'm that age. I don't know, maybe I can overcome it. Maybe I can cut that back, but I don't know. I just feel it already. And what's interesting is I don't feel it's a bad thing. I feel like it's just the normal. I just had 2 thoughts that came together. I was also then, in the evening, while Yumiko was cooking dinner, I was watching Midnight Diner, and it was that one episode where the old man, Marilyn's old teacher, sneaks away from the old senior home and comes to Kabukicho and finds Marilyn, and they have a nice little reunion. But he's a very old man, like in his late 80s, mid 80s. And they finally, there's a scene at the end where they take him back to the old age home. And Marilyn's visiting, and all the old people there. And I was wondering while I was watching that, because I used to work in a senior home, how the seniors just kind of don't seem to rebel against maybe they do. I don't know, maybe they never seemed to do it when I worked there, and I got to know them well. They just seemed to accept where they were, which is, as one of them once told me not so long ago, it was pretty recently, they said, heaven's waiting room. Maybe it's again an extension of what I was seeing in that old man's face. Just, fed up, and what I'm beginning to feel myself, just fed up, tired. Don't want to be a part of this anymore. I did my share. I've raised my child. I've paid my taxes. I've contributed to society for my whole working life. Even even got my thoughts out in a book or two or four. And I'm ready to just be quiet and let all of you do your thing. Even if you want to put me into an old age home, I'll just sit there. Just remember to bring the applesauce around 7. Maybe that was what was in his mind. At one point, that old man, his wife, well, I think it was his wife, came over to him and showed him something on her phone. And he kind of lifted like a kind of a man, kind of snapped out. He put on a smile, which didn't seem false to me. It seemed genuine. Maybe it was more of a smile to be glad to see her than anything else. And he looked at the phone and nodded his assent over something. And then she went back to talking to her, what it seemed to be her daughter, her grown daughter, and he went back to looking at the wall. Not such a bad thing. Maybe it's the way things are supposed to be. Then it's the way our biology is made up. Maybe it's the role of old people to remember and then to fade, and to at some point or another maybe just have enough. The other thing that happened was at the park. After we got home. Yumiko was doing some stuff in her. She's got her beauty room next door where she dolls up and dresses up and stuff. And she had some new clothes for Vegas, so she was doing all of that. And I took the dogs to the dog park. Well, Ollie didn't want to go, so I just took Rudy. Ollie wanted to stay home with Mama. So I went, and I was there, and I was behind on my reading. I have a quota of 10 pages a day. I was a little behind on my reading because we'd been gone all day, and I didn't get to read over lunch. So I got there and I sat down in the park, and Rudy was tooling about, and there were 2 men there when I got there, and each of them was on one of the 3 benches. There are 3 benches in the dog parks. There was a man on each bench. I know each of them. Actually, there was a 3rd man. He was sitting on a little chair that he brought, and it was a beautiful evening. And I sat on the 3rd bench, on the very side, and I was reading my book. And it was a real intense section. It was a section where there was the main part of the book, and then there was some vocabulary that I didn't know that I had to look up, and then there was a subtext that went on. The subtext went on for 2 pages down here, and then up to the main little tiny little small text. It was very complicated reading. And while I was in the middle of all that, a woman came in with her dog, and I noticed her, and I'd seen her before. And the other 2 men were sitting in the middle of the bench, so I was the only person that was sitting on this side, so I had room. So she came over and asked if she could sit with me, and I said, sure. And she sat down, and I was like, I didn't want to talk because I wanted to finish my reading, get my quota in. And so, and I was in a really complicated part. If I had stopped talking, then it would have left me in a really awkward place in the reading in terms of keeping the thoughts. So I kept at it. And then I decided, Kurt, you can do better than this. I know this woman. She's an older woman. She's gregarious. She's friendly, a nice talker. You can do better, Kurt. You can be social. Think about the social principle. And this is within the scope of your control. So I said, okay, think of the true limits and true opportunity. My limit here is that if I stop in this mid-paragraph where I was in this long, complicated subtext stuff, I would have to recover. It'd be hard to recover that. So I said, I'm going to finish this subtext stuff. Then I'll mark my page, close the book, and be social. And that's what I did. And we had the most delightful conversation. Pure fluff and bother. Fluff and bother. It sounds like something Winnie the Pooh would say. Pure fluff and nothing. Just the type of human. And that's why I usually don't want to talk, because so much of the conversation is just, incidental stuff that's not interesting to me, But she was enjoying the conversation, and I was going along, and I wasn't doing it out of charity or anything like that. I was doing it because I know we're social creatures, and that's just I'm better off for it too, and including, and I'm more social, and it wasn't like, again, it wasn't like, and I wasn't forcing myself on her. She readily, as soon as she saw me close the book, she readily kind of, brought her attention back. She had kind of been focusing elsewhere. And then I commented on what a beautiful day. Of course, start with the weather, right? Excuse me. Well, what else are you going to talk about with a stranger? Although some of the old people go really deep, really quick when I talk to them in this area. She didn't do that. Excuse me. And her dog was such a sweetie. So I did what I think was the right thing for everybody involved, which is to put aside, to prioritize the social engagement. We had a nice talk, and eventually I went home, and I was able to finish my quote. I just walked slowly on the way home, and I was able to do it, and it is such a pleasant walk home. So anyway, just an opportunity there. Wow, I didn't think I was going to spend a lot of time talking today. I thought I was going to get right to it because I'm feeling tired as a result of my lack of sleep. But let's get into it. Let's do the good life. 7 objectives and 30 principles. First objective is to be always ready to die. Number 2 is to make good and effective use of time. 3 is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. Number 4 is to cultivate good emotional reactions. 5 is to perform good actions. 6 is to recognize my true limits and my true opportunities. And 7 is to do just one thing at a time, and do that thing slowly and deliberately and carefully. Now my 30 principles. The first of these is the principle of war, to labor every day against the tenets that I hold as true, so that I can disabuse myself of their error if I'm wrong. 2 is the principle of reason, and the 4 sub-principles of honesty, objectivity, doubt, and humiliation. Because an honest life is the start of a reasonable life. And objectively looking at things will help to reveal a truer perspective. Doubt, of course, is necessary if I'm going to take a critical view of things. And then humiliation, a willingness to accept where I'm wrong, and to know that being humiliated in my error is a sign that I'm overcoming it. Okay, the homunculus is next. The suggestion that I don't have a soul, but I do have a consciousness, clearly. And then the Anchorhold, a reminder that if I don't have a soul and I just have a consciousness, it doesn't seem that there's anything in me that's going to survive my death. My consciousness seems to be trapped here inside my electrical apparatus of my brain. And then the home of good and evil, the idea that right and wrong are subjective opinions that we develop and maintain. Then the principle of purpose, and the 3 purpose in my life are: 1, biology, to reproduce and get my child into adulthood. 2, to be a virtuous man, where virtue is defined as the improvement of the well-being of thinking creatures. And then the sharing of my story in my book, Going Alone. Sorry there. Available on Amazon and goingalone.org. And in particular, the Good Life Creed, which is part and parcel of the book. Next is atomic principle. Everything is made of bits and pieces, including you and me, and we're falling to pieces. And then the principle of nature. Everything has some particular nature, and it's good to recognize what that is, including the nature of people. And then maturity, and the pirate ride. The reminder that free will appears to be an illusion, a very convincing one, but an illusion nonetheless, as there are too many forces going on around us that influence our choices, so much so that they, in effect, rob us of our control. We're really just decision engines enacting upon the greater balance of forces that are pushing upon us from all directions at any one time. We yield in the direction of least resistance. That becomes our choice. And that is nothing more than the lesser pressure, the area of least resistance. I'm getting all over the place. I'm not being clear, but I like the imagery there of the pressure is pushing on us in all directions, and wherever there's least pressure, that's where we go. That's the decision we make. And we can do that in our bodily and in terms of our minds. Like right now, the pressure, even though my job is a great job, and I have nothing to be critical or be upset about. I love, and I'm so fortunate to work where I work. Nevertheless, it's hard, mostly because I'm old and I'm tired. So the least pressure then is the pressure of the direction of retirement, which will be a choice that I'll make, which will be less about my making a decision as much as yielding in the direction of least resistance. And then the principle of maturity and the sub-principles of wisdom and fortitude is we are mature when we wisely remember our past successes and failures and do better to improve the successes and avoid the failures again. And then the social principle, we humans need each other. And then the public speaking, a reminder to be very careful about what I say, to be. And there's a sub-principle here I just added yesterday. In fact, it's called the Sub Principle of Prudence. So public speaking suggests I should be prudent, careful, and discerning in the words that I use and how I choose to communicate in both spoken and written format. Then comes temperance, a reminder to consume less of everything and do less of everything. Just to be very moderate in everything. And then and there's sub-principles that are suffering, simplicity, and apathy, because we suffer when we say no. And a simple life is a temperate life. And apathy is what we use to disengage from the things that are outside of our control that we don't engage with. We choose not to engage with it because even if it's just a matter of thinking about it, apathy allows us to do that. I wonder if I could apply apathy to my sleeping problem. And then the horror show is next. A reminder that life is just a chock full horror place. Horror show. Terrible things happening all over the place. And we all get our share to a greater or lesser degree. And then the principle called that which must be borne or carried. What we have to carry is the fact of the horror show and the fact of the responsibilities that we onboard over the course of our life. We have to see them through. We could choose not to, but there are consequences. And then comes two principles together, distraction, and then a principle called agency and the great indifference. Distraction suggests we distract ourselves through life with our work and our families and our recreation and our sports and our music and our TV and our religion, so that we don't see. Why are we distracting ourselves? Well, we distract ourselves partially because some of it's not distraction, it's just what we have to do, but a lot of it is distraction, so that we don't have to witness or dwell on the emptiness of the universe, the fact that we seem to be on our own, even when we're in the bosom of our family. We are each of us alone. We don't want to see that. We would rather tell ourselves that we will in some capacity be all right and maybe even live forever in some paradise to come. And Grandma will be there too. And so will our dogs. It's a nice idea, maybe. Absolutely no reason to think it's true. So I try not to distract myself. That's what going alone is about. Going alone is going to the edge, witnessing the emptiness, witnessing a universe without God, and then deciding how to live well in spite of that apparent fact. Just no small feat. Okay, so then after that comes the best seat in the house, to not want to be anyone else, be anywhere else, or be doing anything else, but to try to be all right with my current circumstances, place, time, activities, and disposition, all the while striving for better. And then the path of wildness. It's a way forward and through, up and into a new life. It's a way to break out of a current paradigm, push through the margin, and to start again, to create successive chapters in life, to lead ourselves into and through a great life adventure, which is another principle coming up in just a sec. Next comes the risk of avoiding risk. There's the deep level risk of finding ourselves, and then the surface level risk of attending to the necessities of adult life, which are, education, career, home, family, and security. It's easier to focus on those top level ones because, or these higher level ones, the surface level ones, because all of our society, institutions, and families encourage us to do so. Get a diploma, get a job, give us some grandbabies, buy a house, invest in your 401k. What few people actually encourage or support us with is the effort to discover or to create our identity out of whole cloth. Some people don't seem to be driven to do that. I guess they're lucky. But if you are and you don't, then watch out, because it doesn't seem to go away. And opportunities fade, especially once we put a ring on it, and especially once a baby arrives. Okay, next is, there are other opportunities, great challenges and opportunities in being a family man or woman, but it doesn't assuage necessarily the other thing. It's tricky. You can sneak it in here and there if you want, but don't. Whatever you do, don't kick your family to the side. Don't kick them to the curb. Don't toss the family away in pursuit of that. That's a dead end. There's great. That's not a virtuous life. Virtue is more important than fulfillment. Virtue is more important than fulfillment. I like that. Virtue over fulfillment. Okay, next is sin and damnation. There are 7 sins in my worldview. All of these relate to being untrue, believing things that are untrue, and gossiping. And these are falsity, credulity, faith, superstition, dogma, authority, and gossip. I just try to avoid doing any of those things because they lead to damnation. Damnation in the here and now for living a lie of sorts, or lying in fact, or soiling ourselves and others through gossip. That's the damnation part. The consequence of those things. Next comes complete oblivion. If we have no soul and there is no God, then there's no afterlife, and only complete oblivion awaits us, which means we won't have a chance to reunite with our loved ones. We won't have a chance to make up, for upset words, and we won't have a chance to see justice served. So we have to attend to those needs now while we can. Okay, next is the Path of Wildness. It's a way forward and up, and like I said before, it's similar to, how did I get on back to, I went all the way back to the Path of Wildness. I mean the Great Life Adventure. It's the place where the Path of Wildness tends to lead. And it's an important experience for those that desire it. And you know you desire it because you know when you desire it. It's probably something that you feel in your college years or your young adult years. It's something that really becomes us. It makes us, forms our identity. And you can get it wholesale by doing it, by hopping on the path of wildness at a young age. Or you can do it piecemeal. That's the way I did it. Well, I don't know. I chose somebody who liked the Great Life Adventure, my wife. We break up our lives and go back and forth between Japan and America every 5 to 10 years. That in itself is a Great Life Adventure. But I also do it, in bits and pieces every 2 weeks when I used to head out into the wild, which I don't really do anymore. I think I've had enough of that, mostly. Maybe someday. I like to just stay at home now. And then comes the season of philosophy, a time to record what we've learned along the way, keep the journal and the pen ready. And then the bullseye aim, striving to hit the bullseye but usually missing. The uphill climb, a steady climb through life, trudging up and up and up, ever higher, thinner air, chillier, legs and body worn and tired. Keep on climbing. And then arena and utility, keeping our principles tuned and ready to seek after our objectives. And then nothing is enough, a reminder not just towards temperance, but towards abstinence in a way. Abstinence of all things, not just that. Getting things down to, if not zero, zero may be a little too much, but close to it. And then lastly, the principle of fun, a reminder to enjoy the moment of now, while also appreciating the pleasure of looking forward and the sweet remembrance of backwards looking. Silly dog. There, that's it. I did my good life creed for today. Now let's prepare myself for the day. I've got like 4 meetings today, short ones I think. 2 of them are tricky ones. I'll get through it. I'm already ready for the first one. I'm nearly ready for the second one. I got some work to do. Today's going to be a trudge. Trudge. I'm ready for a trudge. Although I'm tired. I wish you all the best. Be safe, but not too safe. Bye-bye.